Welcome in, listener. You're listening to a segment from the Slumpbuster podcast with Ju-Ju Dre. Find the full episode on Spotify, iTunes, the Google Play Store, or our YouTube channel. Enjoy.
A fun topic, not one we're going to spend a ton of time on, but apparently there's some proposed rule changes or some proposed playoff changes that have some positive buzz around them, some just instant dismissal. Basically, long story short, the rule change would be, so when we get to the conference finals, we just reseed the final four teams, regardless of which coast they play on, which conference they're in. The final four teams, their record is just reseeded, and we go 1 versus 4, 2 versus 3.
Mm-hmm.
Aundre, do you like this?
So I'm going to argue that I do like it. And part of the reason, so we'd always had the debate of the Warriors versus the Cavaliers. We're not really getting the best two teams in the finals, especially the Cavaliers got swept, right? Or almost swept most of the years that they played the Warriors. Whereas, now you can have a Rockets versus Warriors final where it really probably is the two best teams in the NBA that are able to go against each other rather than meeting just in the conference finals. I know Chris Paul probably would have really liked this and the old Thunder teams when Kevin Durant and them were on it, because they probably would have been on the other side and they could have made it to at least the NBA finals rather than always losing in the Western Conference finals and never quite making it. So, I think it's a good thing. The other thing is, a lot of people, we've always argued that, one conference is weaker than the other, or blah, blah, blah. So it does help to even things out. And it also gives a little bit more credence to, the regular season. Right now, one of the big issues and one of the big things we've always been talking about, especially this year, is load management, right? And you can basically tell that the Clippers do not care about, pleasing their fans. They care more about load management, and Kawhi can do whatever he wants. Paul George can do whatever he wants. And the rest of their players, if they want to take the night off, they can take the night off. But now, if it comes to hey, there's a chance that we're the 4th seed when it comes to this, NBA playoff sort of bracket at the end. And that means we're going to have to go against the best team overall, right, as being a number 1. So that may mean you have to go against Milwaukee, and then you have to go against the number 2, which would probably be the Lakers right now. That's pretty tough, because then you're going to have to go West Coast to East Coast, play a really tough team, get out of that battle, and now you got to go back to the Lakers. No, I'd rather have the number 1 seed overall, right, and then hopefully play a really weak number 4 seed. So for those reasons, that's why I do like it.
Well, that's definitely a big concern, the logistics of the travel arrangements behind it. So apparently the NBA just has enough trouble getting together the finals at the end where you have, the West versus the East, whatever, as it is currently constructed. So adding a whole new series, that's a whole new set of travel arrangements that they have to factor in, get the plane tickets, get the hotel arrangement, everything that goes in hand with traveling in the NBA, especially cross country. So that is a possibility. Another possibility is just the lack of traditional rivalries.
Mm-hmm.
I would argue in a way, though, it could, in theory, make those rivalries a little bit better. Whereas in the past, you would have the Spurs versus the Lakers going for the Western Conference championship. Make that the NBA Finals. That suddenly has a lot more meaning when you talk about Tim Duncan, Ginobili, all them going against Shaq and Kobe, right?
Yeah, no, I definitely see where you're going with that, and I do sort of like that train of thought and that thinking. But the issue is both teams have to be able to make it there. So what if a Lakers, let's just say, so I don't sound biased, what if the Lakers get upset in the semi, right? So let's say the Lakers are the 1 seed, but then they get upset by the 4, and then the Spurs make it. Then you never really get that battle of giants that you're.
Well, that's the thing about the NBA playoffs, though. You rarely see upsets in all reality, usually the 2 best teams always make it to the finals because we have a best of 7 series for that reason. So you don't get the NFL playoffs where sometimes just a team gets lucky, where you can have a Titans beat the Patriots. Whereas if you told me the Titans played the Patriots 7 times, that series will probably lean in the favor of New England. In the NBA, we have never seen an 8 seed beat a 1 seed. Mm-hmm. We rarely see the 4 beat the 1. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean that definitely makes sense. I do think that people like the West Coast sort of, who's the best in the West versus who's the best in the East. But like you said, it could add to that rivalry if they meet up in the finals. Like, for instance, the Lakers versus the Clippers right now, I think is a fantastic rivalry that's starting to grow. Historically, the Clippers have always been little brother, but right now they've won 2-0 over the Lakers. That would be fantastic to see in the NBA Finals, but there's just no way that it can happen with the current system that we have.
I guess another counter argument, though, would be you do risk becoming like college football and maybe you get too regional, right? Whereas, like, we've gone so used to someone from one of these Southern powers winning the championship. I mean, if the way the West is currently constructed and the way the East is currently constructed, wouldn't you have the concern that the West would just dominate this setup for years? Like, we have West-West finals consistently.
The thing about the East is there's always one team that's usually good enough that they could break, into the top two. So right now, Milwaukee, for instance, they would be number one if, we were to start the playoffs today and we use the system. But I do think that you're right, is that the West for so long, right, like we had said, it was really the Rockets versus, the Warriors probably should have been the true finals, right, if we were to use this system. And the Cavaliers probably never would have made it past the Rockets. So that is, I do see that concern. I do see that the West is just stronger still, even today, even though LeBron James came over, the West is just still so stacked that it would be hard to get an East into the playoffs. And with that, you sort of lose a whole half of the country almost of like, hey, there's really nobody from our coast that's playing in the finals, so why are we going to watch?
Yeah, and I think Adam Silver and just in general the NBA has kind of got in the line of thinking with today's social media and everything like that these coastal allegiances, these like local teams don't really matter as much. They still matter to people. You still root for your hometown team a little bit more than you would a team across the country, which you barely get a chance to see. Like if you're on the East Coast, these West Coast games are really hard to see. So like you can't depend on like, I mean, I'm sure they would move the playoff schedule around accordingly so the East Coast can watch, which in turn kind of screws over the players too and their prep time and how they kind of go about it. But still, it's hard for East Coast fans to have the same level of interest in a West Coast team. So that's maybe why a pro argument for not doing this, because you still need some representation. I don't know.
No, I mean, I think that's an extremely valid point. Is like I said, if you don't have a dog in the race, you're less likely to care about the race at all, right? So you're less likely to watch. And where I can see that they'll get viewers is the real fans of basketball that are like, yeah, I'm all about basketball and I want to see the two best teams go at it. You'll definitely keep those fans, but are those the fans that you're really trying to keep right now? Or are you trying to bring in new fans? And new fans are more likely to come in when it's like, hey, this is the town that I live in. This is the city that I live in, right? And they're happening to go to the NBA championship. I mean, we saw that with an entire country in Toronto. Could you imagine if Toronto wasn't there last year? Then it would have been maybe it could have been just a California final, right? Like it could have been Clippers versus the Warriors. Then you lose basically the rest of the country, right?
Yeah. I mean, if you literally have a finals that's out of entirely Staples Center, then anyone outside of the LA area, I mean, sure, don't get me wrong, there's obviously Lakers fans across the country. Less so Clippers, though.
Yeah, exactly. And like I said, if it's like, oh, it's just the Battle of LA, basically, your true NBA fans that want to see like a good game, right? A clash of styles almost. You've got your long defensive wings on the Clippers that are really good at offense as well versus your two sort of dominant bigs and a LeBron and AD. And the NBA nerds and the NBA faithfuls, they're going to be the ones that really get excited about that matchup. They're really going to want to watch it in the NBA Finals. But if you're going from a league standpoint, are those really the people you're trying to keep as viewers? Like, they're always going to be there no matter what. It doesn't matter who's in the NBA Finals. Those are going to be the people that are constantly watching. So, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, it's an interesting concept, and I do applaud the NBA for at least wanting to try some stuff. I think it's a little bit better than even just making the 1 through 16 bracket like everyone's talking about. I think that becomes a little harder to do. That becomes a little bit more one-sided. I think that this is a decent middle ground, so I think it's at least worth a vote. Apparently, it's gotten dismissed right away. I don't know. I think they should talk it out a little bit more. But that said, the NBA is also starting to get into this point where they're getting a little gimmicky. Like they've talked about the midseason tournaments and the play-in games. I don't know. I don't know how much merit those concepts really have. If we hear any more on those votes, we'll definitely talk about it. But before we move off the NBA, just a quick shout out. So, just memoriam right here. So David Stern, the fourth commissioner of the NBA, he passed in our little hiatus this last couple weeks. He was the first commissioner I knew. He was the commissioner from 1984 all the way up until 2014. Controversies, uniform fines, a lot of these things like kind of are symbolic when it comes to David Stern's like tenure. But at the end of the day, he did make a lot of good, innovative concepts for the league. Like the draft lottery, I think, is one of the NBA's like biggest selling points, and he was a big part of that. So David Stern, we'll remember you fondly. Like prayers out to your family, and you left behind a good legacy, man.
Yeah, no, I definitely think the game would not be where it is today, and especially the global brand that the NBA is. It was definitely a big proponent of that. Even sort of the diversity and inclusion type stuff, right? The WNBA, he was a big proponent of that, and so David Stern has definitely left a lasting legacy, not only in the basketball world, but also just the sports world in general.
Yeah, I think in general, when you think about it, he's probably one of the better commissioners we've had in all of sports.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, when you're competing against Goodell, though, I mean, nah. It's honestly no. Commissioner is like such a thankless job. I would. It's like being a president, right? Just like there's half hate you, half love you. No one says thank you. You're always there lending out the suspensions, the fines, but you're never getting the praise for putting on a great show.
Yeah.
Better than Adam Silver.
Yeah, commissioner would be a ridiculously difficult job to be able to carry out. Like you said, you always get the blame for when things go wrong, but you never get sort of the highlight for when things go right. And so even though the NBA, they've set, record numbers, nobody's ever saying like, oh, Adam Silver is the best commissioner ever. It's only when, hey, things are going wrong and, we're about to go to war with China over something that a GM said. And it's like, oh, Adam Silver, you suck, right?
Yeah. I mean, I'll still say Adam Silver, you suck, but that's a story for a different